What happens when the greatest conqueror in history dies without naming an heir? In 323 BCE, Alexander the Great breathed his last breath in Babylon at just 32 years old. He had conquered everything from Greece to India, creating the largest empire the world had ever seen. But when his generals gathered around his deathbed and asked, "Who will inherit your empire?" Legend says Alexander whispered just two words: "The strongest." Those two words would ignite 40 years of brutal warfare, betrayal, and bloodshed. Welcome to Historic War Lens, where we explore the wars history forgot. I'm your host, and today, we're diving into the Diadochi Wars, the savage power struggle that tore Alexander's empire apart and reshaped the ancient world forever. Let's set the stage. It's June 10th or 11th, 323 BC. The palace in Babylon is in chaos. Alexander the Great, the man who never lost a battle, who conquered the Persian Empire, who declared himself a god, is dead. Some say it was malaria. Others whisper poison. We may never know the truth. But here's the problem. Alexander left behind no clear successor. His half-brother, Philip Aridaeus, was mentally disabled and considered unfit to rule. His wife Roxana was pregnant, but the child, who would become Alexander IV, wasn't born yet. The empire stretched from Macedonia in Europe to the Indus Valley in modern-day Pakistan. And now, it had no leader. In that Babylonian throne room stood some of history's most brilliant and ruthless military commanders. These were the men who had fought beside Alexander for over a decade, who had conquered the known world. They were called the Diadochi, Greek for successors. And each one believed he should inherit the empire. Let me introduce you to the key players. Perdiccas, Alexander's second-in-command, and the cavalry commander. When Alexander died, he was holding the king's royal ring, which many interpreted as Alexander choosing him as regent. Ptolemy, one of Alexander's childhood friends and possibly his half-brother, a brilliant strategist who would become the founder of Egypt's Ptolemaic dynasty. Seleucus, commander of the elite companion cavalry, ambitious, calculating, and patient. Antigonus Monophthalmus, the one-eyed, a 60-year-old general who lost an eye in battle but lost none of his ambition. He dreamed of reuniting the entire empire under his rule. Lysimachus, the governor of Thrace, a fierce warrior with dreams of power. Cassander, son of Antipater, the regent of Macedonia. He felt he deserved more than his father's leftovers. And several others, each commanding armies of thousands, each holding pieces of Alexander's empire. At the partition of Babylon in 323 BCE, they tried to compromise. Perdiccas would serve as regent for Philip Aridaeus and the unborn Alexander IV. The empire would be divided into satrapies, provinces, each governed by one of Alexander's generals. But this peace, it wouldn't last a year. The first crack appeared almost immediately. Perdiccas, as regent, believed he held supreme authority. But the other generals? They saw him as just another competitor. Ptolemy made the first bold move. When Alexander's funeral cortege was traveling from Babylon back to Macedonia, Ptolemy hijacked it. He seized Alexander's golden sarcophagus and took it to Egypt, claiming Alexander as his legitimacy. This was a deliberate insult to Perdiccas and an act of war. Perdiccas was furious. In 322 BCE, the First Diadoch War erupted. Perdiccas invaded Egypt in 321 BCE to punish Ptolemy. But things went disastrously wrong. While trying to cross the Nile River, Perdiccas lost 2,000 men to the river's crocodiles and strong currents. His army, already exhausted and demoralized, turned against him. In a conspiracy led by his own officers, Perdiccas was assassinated in his tent. The great regent was dead. The first domino had fallen. A new meeting was called, the Partition of Triparadisus, in 320 BCE. The empire was redistributed. Antipater, the elderly general who had ruled Macedonia in Alexander's absence, became the new regent. Antigonus the One-Eyed was given command of the royal army in Asia. Seleucus received the rich satrapy of Babylon. But once again, this peace was an illusion. When Antipater died in 319 BCE, he bypassed his own son Cassander and appointed Polyperchon, an older general, as regent. Cassander was livid. He wouldn't accept this humiliation. Meanwhile, in Asia, a brilliant Greek general named Eumenes, loyal to Alexander's memory and fighting to protect his family, was waging war against Antigonus. From 319 to 316 BCE, the wars intensified. Cassander and Polyperchon fought for control of Macedonia. Eumenes fought Antigonus across Asia Minor and Persia in a series of brilliant campaigns. But in 316 BCE, Eumenes was betrayed by his own troops, the Silver Shields, veterans of Alexander's campaigns, who sold him out for money. Antigonus had him executed. Now, Antigonus the One-Eyed stood as the most powerful Diadochi. He controlled most of Asia, from Turkey to Iran, and he made his intentions clear. He wanted to reunite Alexander's entire empire under his rule. This terrified the other Diadochi. In 315 BCE, Ptolemy, Cassander, and Lysimachus did something unprecedented. They formed a coalition against Antigonus. They sent him an ultimatum: redistribute the territories and surrender your conquests. Antigonus's response? War. The Third Diadoch War exploded across the Mediterranean. Antigonus invaded Syria to control its naval resources. His brilliant son, Demetrius Poliorcetes, the besieger, began conquering cities across Greece. The war raged for 4 years. In 311 BCE, exhausted, all sides agreed to the peace of the dynasts. But you know what happened next, right? The peace didn't hold. Almost immediately, Seleucus, who had been driven from Babylon by Antigonus, invaded his old satrapy with Ptolemy's support. At the Battle of Gaza in 312 BCE, Ptolemy and Seleucus defeated Demetrius. Seleucus marched east, reconquered Babylon, and then kept going. He seized all the eastern territories, Persia, Bactria, even parts of India. In just a few years, Seleucus built an empire stretching from Syria to Afghanistan. Meanwhile, Antigonus and Demetrius weren't finished. They invaded Greece. Demetrius famously besieged the city of Rhodes for an entire year, earning his nickname, the Besieger. Though Rhodes held out, Demetrius's reputation as an unstoppable warrior grew. But Antigonus's ambitions finally brought doom upon him. In 301 BCE, at the Battle of Ipsus in Phrygia, the coalition, Seleucus, Lysimachus, Cassander, and Ptolemy, united against Antigonus and Demetrius. This would be the decisive battle. The armies were massive. Antigonus commanded over 70,000 infantry and 10,000 cavalry. The coalition brought 64,000 infantry, 10,500 cavalry, and Seleucus's secret weapon, 480 war elephants from India. The battle was brutal. At 81 years old, Antigonus the One-Eyed refused to retreat. He fought until he was surrounded and killed on the battlefield, struck down by javelins. His dream of reuniting Alexander's empire died with him. Demetrius escaped with 9,000 men, but his father's empire was carved up. The Battle of Ipsus marked the end of any hope for reunification. Alexander's empire was permanently divided into 3 major kingdoms: the Ptolemaic kingdom in Egypt under Ptolemy, the Seleucid Empire in Asia under Seleucus, the Antigonid kingdom in Macedonia, eventually under Demetrius's descendants. But the wars? They still weren't over. For the next 20 years, the Diadochi continued fighting. Demetrius eventually seized Macedonia in 294 BCE, but was later captured by Seleucus and died in captivity. Cassander died in 297 BCE, leaving his kingdom in chaos as his sons fought each other. By 281 BCE, only 2 of the original Diadochi remained, Seleucus and Lysimachus. These 2 old warriors, now in their 70s and 80s, had one final showdown. At the Battle of Corupedium in 281 BCE, Seleucus defeated and killed Lysimachus. Seleucus, the last Diadochi standing, had won. But history has a cruel sense of irony. As Seleucus marched into Macedonia to finally claim the throne of his old homeland, he was assassinated by Ptolemy Ceraunus, the son of Ptolemy I, who had been passed over for the Egyptian throne. After 40 years of warfare, betrayal, and bloodshed, Seleucus died just as he reached his goal. The Diadochi Wars were finally over. So what was the legacy of the Diadochi Wars? These conflicts killed millions. They destroyed cities. They saw brothers betray brothers, allies become enemies, and the greatest empire in history torn apart. But they also created something new. The three kingdoms that emerged, the Ptolemaic, Seleucid, and Antigonid dynasties, would dominate the Mediterranean and Near East for centuries. They spread Greek culture, language, and ideas across the ancient world in what we call the Hellenistic Age. Ptolemy's dynasty in Egypt would last until Cleopatra's death in 30 BCE, nearly 300 years. The Library of Alexandria, one of the wonders of the ancient world, was built under his reign. Seleucus's empire, though it fragmented over time, Hellenized Asia and created the fusion of Greek and Persian cultures that influenced everything from art to philosophy. And the warfare itself? The tactics, strategies, and technologies developed during the Diadochi Wars influenced military thinking for generations. But perhaps the most important lesson is this: when Alexander whispered to the strongest, he didn't mean the strongest would inherit his empire intact. He meant the strongest would fight for it, tear it apart, and build something new from the ruins. The Diadochi Wars remind us that history's greatest empires are often more fragile than they appear. And when titans fall, the world reshapes itself in the chaos that follows. Thank you for watching Historic War Lens. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Diadochi Wars, please like this video and subscribe for more forgotten conflicts from history. Next time, we'll explore another war you've probably never heard of. Which war should we cover next? Let me know in the comments below. Until then, keep looking through the lens of history.